Okay, so if we want to have dripping ice cream, the easiest thing to do is to start with what you've got. So we've got kind of like an ice cream cone, right? Okay, and what I recommend is that you go in and you figure out like where you're starting and where you're finishing. So are you finishing in like a puddle?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll have kind of like a puddle down in here like this, okay? Now how do we get from here to here is we need to figure out like what the next step is. So part of this is going to be you're going to have some loss of height, and then this stuff is going to drip down, right? And so if you kind of figure out ahead of time how many drips you want, and I like an odd number, so 1 or 3, right? So
probably 3.
Yeah, so we can come in here, and I'm just going to say, let's figure out like a major keyframe here. And so I'm just going to go like when we get like down, and then maybe there's another one here, and then maybe we'll kind of come up. And I like to have them like at different levels. Come up something like this. Okay, so that's going to be a major one. By the time we get to that point, try to think about the mass, right? So the mass of here and then the mass of this. Most of the top of this is going to be gone. So what is this going to look like at that stage? It's going to kind of be, about like that, right? So then we just have to figure out like what's going to happen to get us from those things. And so add another one and say, well, we need to go down a little bit. We need to go. And so I'm just going to kind of like start these ones. This one's probably going to be the earliest. And so I'm just going to kind of give myself a little bit of that, a little bit of this, right? Maybe some of that, and then just a little bit of a reduction of the top. And then we can add another one and just kind of continue to do that. We'll probably somewhere around here, and then a little bit down in here.
So would you make these each their own element?
So that's one option. But because you're using After Effects, I don't think you need to make each one their own element. You can. And so you could frame by frame like traditional animation and this. But what I'm doing here is I'm giving myself like major keyframes. And so like, let's say I want this to kind of like sink in the middle a little bit as this kind of expands. And so this next one I'm going to come in. If I were traditionally doing this, I might have 3 frames, I might have 15 frames, but I don't want to do that many drawings. So I'm just going to come up, get on a new layer. I'm going to come up and kind of have it kind of like dip in the center, right? And then we'll kind of do a little bit more here, little bit more here, kind of in between those two. Okay, so you put these in order. Let's reduce the opacity of that one, and let's figure out what happens from here. So is it going to fall away from the cone? Or is it, like, it's not going to cling to the cone,
Not going
right?
to cling to the cone, just drop.
So, yeah, so it'll just drop. So we'll just kind of like...
So that's what I was asking about yesterday with, like, the changing the color of each thing. So, like, making a new composition with the same effects and then changing the color. So then the puddle will change, and then the loop will be, like, a new color, like, plops down.
What's going to happen? Oh, so what's going to happen to the puddle?
The puddle just stays, but then it, like...
Oh, I see.
A new color comes onto it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that'll be where like the loop comes in.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna go from this last one, and I'm gonna make this part fall kind of fast. So I'm gonna give myself some kind of like speed lines here, a little bit, and then this one I'm gonna have kind of connect, and kind of start down in here like this, and so this is where you could kind of like start filling this in, and then it could just kind of, come, like, that's too far here, but it could just start like filling in that edge, and you probably don't need too much more than that.
Yeah.
And then we'll drop this down, add another one, and that'll get us all the way to the edge here, like this. On there, but then we'll just have these trailing, and now I've got way too much, so I'm just gonna kind of see where I was last and first. Okay, so this will kind of fill in like that, and then we just need a little bit of these remnants. Yeah, so I'm just gonna give myself some of this down here, and
So maybe like start it slow, and then the very end, it's like.
yeah. So
Okay.
the melting part, I would see that happening kind of slowly. But once it, the last of it is past
And
this
it's just like,
point, I'm
drops
thinking,
down.
yeah, just really quick, just a few frames. So once we've got that, then the last one is just going to be, this final, So I could even just duplicate that layer and erase this part. And draw the rest in like that. Okay. So, and then you'd want to figure out like this cone here, right? And so I'm just going to take this, duplicate this layer, and let's cut this top part up, and just give ourselves a little bit of a smear frame of what this could look like. And I'm just gonna come in and just kind of add in a couple points of action here. So kind of maybe some of this.
Okay, wait, that actually makes so much more sense with the smear frame.
Right, because that's going to give you that kind of like falling motion. And then when it hits, you can have it expand out a little bit and then settle back in. So it could kind of just scale a little bit wider. Okay, so now that we've got this, we can take all these layers, right? Let's turn them all up. Do we have them in order? Let's make sure that they're in order. So there's that. So this one needs to go before that one. And then this one doesn't have anything in it. Okay, so that's where we need to figure out where this one ends up. So that's before that one. Okay, so I get down to that point and then go really fast there. We might need something in between that. That's there, and then it ends there, and this one doesn't need to exist. Okay, so let's turn the opacity of all of those up. Okay, so I'm just going to save this. And if we save this really quick, I'll save it to my computer. And for right now, we'll just throw it to the desktop. Call it Icecream. Okay. All right, so we'll jump into After Effects. Okay, let's create a new project or new composition. And we will make that 1920 by 1080, or are you going vertical?
I probably should go vertical. I was working horizontal, but I think vertical would be better.
So let's go 1080 by 1920. Click OK. All right, so here's our thing. And I'm just going to file import file or Command I. We'll go get our ice cream cone here. Composition, retain layer sizes, open. Oop, maybe. It's freaking out here. Oh, right. So, sure. Okay, so we got this. We can just kind of stick this in here like that, right? And so that'll give us a basic idea. Maybe our puddle's a little bit too wide, so we can kind of figure out, or maybe you want a lot of vertical space to like see the next cone drop in. Depends what you want. So wherever that is, kind of stick this here. And then we're just going to come in, and I'm going to grab, let's grab all of these layers. You can solo this with this button.
Okay.
And that'll kind of show you, we didn't name any of these, which we should have. Okay, so this one to this one. I'm just going to press page down. Let's go zoom in here. So we'll zoom in, page down and page up will give you one frame forward.
All right.
So I'm just going to go one frame forward, and I'm going to grab all these, Command Shift D, and then delete. And now everything is one frame long. And so I can grab this and press left bracket, Shift, and then we'll just go page down. We'll grab the next one, left bracket, or you can just drag them over, whichever one is easier to do. Okay, and that'll give you just a little bit of a scrubbable. One of these is, yeah. So we kind of need more time here. So I'm just going to drag this one and drag it over like that. And we can figure out the timing later because this is mainly just going to give us the keyframes. Okay, but like that. So then if we play that through, right, a little bit too fast, whatever. But we can kind of figure all that out later. So now that we got this, we'll go back to our composition. Okay, and if we zoom in here, you can do a couple of different things. So we're going to use this to kind of like. Oh, I see. I gotta zoom in. So we're going to use this to sort of give ourselves a guide, right? And this is where you can do one of two things. So you can build all of the vector assets in Illustrator and then import them in, or you can build them in After Effects. Or you can do a combination of those and start them in Illustrator and then kind of animate them in After Effects. Either way. So I'm just gonna kind of go over basics, and you can kind of decide. So I'm gonna come in here, and I'm just gonna start with my pen tool, okay? And I'm just gonna give myself this first frame. And we'll kind of just come over and come up. Okay, so I've got this guy. And it's not a bad idea to maybe lower the opacity so you can kind of see what's going on, right? And so I'm going to come into the shape layer, and I'm going to twirl into the contents, and I'm going to twirl into shape, and I'm going to twirl into path, okay, until I see a stopwatch. So once I see a stopwatch, click on the stopwatch, right? So that means that now any changes that we make to that are going to animate. They're going to create a keyframe. And so then I can just start coming in here, and I can start hitting my keyframe. So the first thing that I want to do, sounds like, hold on, I'm going to come back over here to Icecream.
So you're saying like I could go and make like all of the assets in Illustrator just like we just did, but like adding like one or two more, or whatever. Or I go in this way, have like my sketches, and then I create the shapes here. Yeah.
So this that we did in Photoshop. Consider that like or your sketchbook or anything. Consider that just your storyboard, right? That's just to figure out the major points of what's going to happen. And we might have done too many, but it'll kind of give you those. And then what I'm saying is that you're going to come in here, and when you start animating this shape layer that could come from Illustrator.
Gotcha.
Right? And you'll figure out your shadows and your highlights and whatever else. And you kind of figure out how those work. Or you could start it like I did in After Effects as a shape layer.
Gotcha.
So either way, if it starts in Illustrator, you'll have to kind of like do that thing where you right click on it and you create vector outlines from the thing. So this is just a little bit less. So I'm gonna go one frame over, okay? And so now I have this one guideline, and I'm just gonna change this shape with my selection tools and pen tool to kind of roughly match what's sort of happening here. And so I'm going to need some extra anchor points, I'm going to need some extra vertices. And so we'll come in here and I'll just kind of add some here and there and here. And then we can start having these kind of drip into and out of that. And then we'll go to the next one, okay? And the next one is fairly significant, so we might space that out later, but right now we're just getting the major keyframes down. So I'm just gonna grab these guys and move that whole thing down. And And then I'm going to grab this one goes down here. And so all of these stay in the same spot. And so this is kind of the high point of that drip in between. This is the low point. This is the low point. We need to keep those in the same spot the whole time as we're kind of tracking those. And so we'll kind of come in here and.
So if you take a element from Illustrator,
yeah,
and you bring it in here, can you manipulate it the same way?
It depends on how it's built. So if it has a single path, then yes. If it's a layer that has multiple paths, like you've got shadows and highlights and things, you can, but it's a little bit different. So like we could be doing this. We could be doing this with, like we could turn this into a track mat and then use your Illustrator layer to kind of do that with a track mat. I could kind of show you some of that.
That'd be awesome.
But let's. I'm gonna hide this for a minute, and let's zoom out, and I'll just show you what's. So now we've got. Let me zoom back in a little bit. Okay. So now we've got this. Now we have these one frame away, so they just look like that, right? But if we want to, we can space this out, and After Effects will transition between those keyframes for us. And so that's where this is a little bit easier and more powerful than drawing every frame, right? And so that's kind of what we're doing is we're just getting these major frames down, and then we'll figure out our timing. So real animators would be like, why are you doing it that way? But there's a lot of math in traditional animation that I don't want to deal with. I'm going to add some handlebars to that one just to lift it up a little bit. And handlebars to this one to lift that up a little bit. Okay, and then let's spread this out and kind of see. Yeah, that's okay. That syncs well. Okay, so we didn't have to change that too much. Let's come this way. And this is the tedious part where we're just, trying to figure out. You're going to do a lot of handlebar adjustments. You're going to, make sure everything's kind of
where it looks
doing
good.
whatever. Yeah, and we might be able to skip a few of these. And so let's see if we can skip forward. Zoom out just a little bit, and let's just get to this point.
Just a quick question. The dark spots on the timeline,
Yeah.
is that just where all those frames come in?
Yeah, I've zoomed in so much. If I press minus, they go away. I've zoomed in so much that we're just seeing every frame. So this is 10 frames, 11. So if you zoom out, they kind of go away.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll come in here like this. We'll come down here like this. This is going to kind of stretch out like that. And this is going to get weird up top. I might simplify that just since it's going to be so fast anyway. And I'll put this here. Let's zoom in. I'm just going to do a few of these instead of tons of them. So let's just add some. Okay, so where were we? We're up there, go down here. Okay, so I'm just going to have this stay up, this go down, this stay up, this go down. Okay, and then kind of exaggerate that. I might want more now that I'm looking at it, but we'll figure that out in a minute.
Hold on 1 second. Rusty, can I use your office for a bit? Or
Zoop. Okay, so like that. Okay. Then it gets a little bit tricky because we're starting to get into this. We can add another shape, right? And so if I come in here like this and I get into my pen tool and I go, okay, so let's just kind of let's start here and we'll go over and we'll come over and we'll come up. kind of into that. And then down. And come back up. Okay, so now we've got a second shape. We can deal with this other path in a minute, but let's just, because now it's going to always be there. We'll figure that out in a sec. Okay, so the next one is going to be down here, and this starts to expand. So this is where it looks like we got rid of that layer, but we want to end up at that wide puddle right here, right? And so I'm gonna take this second shape, and I'm just gonna put it to the edge of this puddle. So let's grab that layer and come all the way up. Grab this layer. This is going to be down and flat. This is going to be down and flat. And I confused myself. Hold on. Let me go back. This needs to go straight down here. This needs to go straight down. This needs to go straight down. We'll turn those in a minute. This needs to be over here. This one probably needs to be here. We'll see how that works. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to figure out like those anchor points. Each anchor point has a position, and where it moves is kind of where everything will go. So depending on where you put those will kind of depend on how it gets to where it is.
Gotcha.
And some of these have too many handlebars that are a little too long, so. I'm gonna shrink those up.
Makes sense.
Okay, so let's zoom out here, and we'll just kind of, that's pretty good,
Yeah.
right? And then we just need to figure this out. Okay, and this is where we might not have had enough vertices. And so if you add some, it'll add them to the whole timeline, and so we'll have to go back and make sure that those are in the right spot as well.
Gotcha.
So I'm just going to add one here, and then let's scrub back and forth to see if that's okay. And that's fine. It kind of
because
does
it'll
its
just
thing.
throw it on.
Yeah, and we can kind of spread this out. You see how it kind of expands? Okay. So that one does that. Now we just need to go back on this other one into this really quick. So I'm just gonna that's gonna be really fast. We don't need to be too crazy. What the heck? Sorry. Bit.
That one to be crazy.
Yeah. All right, so let's just grab all of these. And we're gonna come down, missed one. Where is that one? Oh, there it is. If you shift click, it'll like deselect it, and then you can click again and it'll select it. Now, what we're looking not to do is what's happening right now where they all kind of cross over each other. And so we need to make sure that they don't do that. But I'm mainly trying to get them down. And so I'm going to try to get them down here, and then if we need to fix anything, we can kind of...
Like if it does the weird.
Yeah, if it starts...
crosses.
What'll happen is it'll start crossing over itself, and we'll just...
Then you get like the flipped handlebars and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's spread this out, and I'm just I'm gonna make one keyframe on this other one where it is out of the way. Maybe. Yeah, that's the one. Also, we could change the color of this. It would probably help us see everything. Okay, we'll
It's
smooth
smart
that
though
over.
to knock down the opacity.
Yes, then you can see your sketch underneath. Okay, so now that's out of the way. I'm just going to move this over. We'll deal with that in a minute. Okay, so that kind of drops, but it's not, that's not bad. And once it gets down in here, it's going to mix with the other one and blend anyway. So, and this is only going to be a couple frames. So what we really need to do is just make sure that we get this kind of trailing spiky bits the way that we want it. And that's probably fine like that. And then the next one, this is just totally gone, so we're just gonna kind of bring all this down.
And then at that point, it doesn't necessarily matter where they end.
Yeah, because it's gonna kind of like mix with the other shape, right? And so what we need is we really just need it to be inside of this other shape, which, just for the sake of my sanity here, I'm going to change the color of, just so we can see what's going on. We can change that back later. Okay, so we just need it to be inside of green, and then we can make it go away. So I'm going to grab this again, and I'm just going to, oops, not the whole thing. I'm just going to put these little bits inside of the green. Okay. So it goes down and then spans out. All right. So now we just need to kind of line these up a little bit. So let's put this back here, and so it hits and kind of spreads out. And so we're going to kind of spread this out. So there's a few frames there. Let's make this happen a little bit slower.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay. And then
How many frames does this all happen in?
well, that's kind of
Did
what
we
we
end up
can
doing?
decide now, because we were just kind of just messing around. I'm just going to grab this and just kind of space these out a little bit, and then I'm going to grab the whole thing, space it out. Oops, come back. Grab the end of that, holding Alt, and so that takes a second if we do it that way. So if I come over here at the end here and I just press N, it'll kind of cinch up my work area, and we can kind of preview it. And there are parts of that are a little bit slow, but also as I'm watching this, I'm getting confused on my sketching. So I need to, let's turn the opacity up on our shapes, and I'm going to hide this guy so that we're just looking at the ice cream. And what I'm seeing is right at the top there's like a weird kind of transition. And so I can scrub back and forth, and I can say right about here, it's kind of strange. Right, and so that's fine, but then there's this little stutter, and so if I click on this and hit U to kind of expose those keyframes, I try to figure out what that stutter is, and I don't know if I want that to happen faster or slower, but first I'm going to try slower. So I'll just grab all of these. I'm just going to move that out a little bit. And so it kind of does that, and then slowly goes there. So let's see what that looks like. Good. Okay. Now, I'm just going to put this one. This is a little trick. So I don't want the green part to show up until right at the end. So I'm gonna get rid of this, and then I'm just gonna make it very, very small. Right. It's going to kind of hide. Or in fact, I might even just come in. Let's do it this way. So let's just use scale. So I'm going to take transform shape. I'm going to turn scale on, and in one frame, I'm going to scale it from 0. So it's basically just off, and then it just turns itself on right there. Except I did it on the wrong one. So I'll do that on the right one.
Shape 2.
Oh, I went too low. There we go. So scale. Move that over. Turn this to 0. Okay, and so it goes down and then good. Okay, and now we can come in and we can say, all right, so let's play this through. That's pretty good. Okay, and let's come down here like this, and we'll say this is where we can add in the Illustrator elements. So this layer, I'm going to call this melt matte. Okay. Now what we're doing here now is this layer becomes something that we can overlay stuff on. So if we go jump back into Adobe Illustrator, okay, and we've got, let's do this, but flip it. Okay, so we got this, and I'm just gonna take a little screenshot of this to give us just a general idea of where things are. This is a stupid way to do that, but it's fast. So in here like that, come back over here and paste. Okay, so that just gives me kind of a rough idea of that, and then I can come back and see where it ends up and give myself a rough idea of where that ends up. And we can just, blend those. Okay, so now we've got where that is, and I can come in here and I can illustrate. I'm just going to do 2 quick layers, and I'm not going to spend much time on it. So I'm going to go 1 layer, puddle. I'm going to do another layer, scoop. Okay, and let's just kind of draw over the top here. I'm going to intentionally go outside of the bounds of this, just to give myself a little bit of room, and because we're going to use that as a track mat. So that's going to give me this. Let's make this first one red, and then we can do like a draw inside, and I'll take this red and make it a little bit darker, and I'm just going to give myself like some kind of textury, kind of shadowy stuff like that. And then let's give ourselves a little bit of a, you'll do this a lot better and take more time. And I'm just going to do this one and have it be, come on, brighter. Ooh, that was ugly. Okay, so let's pretend like that looks good. Okay. Then we'll come down here and we'll do the same thing with our puddle. And so I'm just going to come in and just, I need to get out of draw inside. And so here's I need to make sure that I'm outside of the bounds of this.
And why outside? Because
we're going to clip our layers. We're going to clip these layers with the track mat that we just made.
Okay.
So that may make a little bit more sense in a minute. And so I'm gonna eye drop this. Nope, I'll do that in a minute. Okay, so let's give ourselves a little highlight puddle. So I'm gonna come in and I'm just gonna give myself just a little bit of a edge here like that, which it totally destroyed because it was highlighted. Hold on. Edge here like this. What is wrong with my pencil? Fidelity, more accurate. That should be fine. Let's do it. Let's try it one more time. Okay, a little bit of a highlight. Have I made like 15 of these and it's just not showing me? I have. Okay, great. So I just want one of these. So you go away.
Like we're here, trust us.
Yeah, right. Okay. And then I want this one to have this color. And then I want let's do a shadow color. So I'll come in, I'm going to do the same thing, and don't let me forget that it's actually there. Okay, so a little bit of a shadow color like that. Okay, and we will grab that one and we'll make it this color. Okay, and let's grab our big one. And it's not going to give us this color, so let's go into that layer.
Oh, because it's a...
Because it's a mask, yeah, it's a clipping path. So on my scoop, I want the scoop color. There we go. Okay, and then give me my main path here and be that color. Great. So we've got that. It's kind of ugly. It'll be better in a minute. Okay, so we're going to take this, move it into our puddle layer. Okay. And you'll do whatever work you want to do to make this look like you want it to look. Okay, and we'll save these. So file save on our computer. And let's go scoop and puddle. Okay, save. That's great. Okay, now we'll bring this over to After Effects. And let's import it. Command I, desktop, scoop and puddle, composition, retain layer sizes. Okay, and I'm going to grab my scoop. And so let's go back over here like this. Okay, and I'll grab my scoop and I'll put it right on top like that. Now is where I take this and I use my track mat to point it at our melt that we made. And it's just going to trim it off the edge. So as this starts to melt, see how that's doing that? Let me zoom in. So as that starts to melt, you see how our Illustrator file was giving us the whatever, right? We'll have to do some stuff with that in a minute. Okay, so that's going to kind of do that. Okay, and then let's add our puddle. So we'll fast forward here to the end, right there. And we'll add the puddle so that it is right there. And do the same thing, track mat on our melt. Okay, and so that will kind of expand out like that. And that's the basic, right? And so now we just need to kind of now we just need to kind of figure out what we want to do in between here. Okay, and so this is where there's a number of things you can do. They're kind of interesting. It kind of depends on what you want to do. But one of them is if you go to Effects and Presets and you look at you look under Distort, you get a lot of different options. One of them is Liquify. And so we could come in here and drag this Liquify onto our scoop layer. Okay. And it's kind of like Puppet Pen, right? And so I'm going to turn on my distortion mesh. Okay. And I've got all these little tools up here. Each one of these does something different. We're just going to use the one that's got the finger that pushes. I think it's called smear or smudge or something. And we will start. So let's go here. And we'll start with this here. And then let's just go pretty far. And I'm just going to start dragging this down. I'm going to turn it up a little bit more. And so I can just start to kind of like pull down like this. And then we can sort of, right, get that to kind of cover.
So wherever you stop, is that where, like, does it put a keyframe there?
Yeah, so wherever my playhead is. So if I move my playhead further like this,
and then you go
it'll add another keyframe. Yeah. Oops, we gotta be a little bit careful. I'm starting to distort this a little bit more than I want. It starts to break a little bit sometimes. It's kind of finicky. We could also be stretching this out, or I can come in here and say I just want this part to be bigger, so I can use bloat. But what's actually happening is it's creating this mesh, and we're just kind of like warping the mesh. And so then we come back over here, let's go fit, and then it starts to kind of melt like that. And so all we'd really need to do is kind of cover that kind of gap. And that's it. So
Sweet.
I'm coming here like that, and then just kind of like play this. But
That's cool.
yeah, so it's kind of fun. I like making my track mat a drastically different color so that I can see where the gaps are. That's really helpful. But any questions on anything that I did? So I know that was a lot of different things going on.
I feel like you explained it really well. If it starts to get, because we're starting to get the blue and the green into it,
Yeah.
how do you like go around that? Would you just like have to be careful about where you're putting
Yeah.
it?
So
or,
there's
like,
a couple things that you could
turning
do.
off the color of the track mat?
You could turn off the track map, but then you'd see holes, right? You'd see
Gotcha.
the background behind it, so we'd see the cone or whatever, which
So have
could
it
be
like
good.
so maybe do it as best as you can, and then
Well, and a third option might be that I just add another layer here, and so I just come in and I'm just going to cover this whole thing. Let's move this over, and then I'll just grab, I'll grab this color, and then I'll put this back, and I'll put this under the two Illustrator layers, and then I could also track mat that as well. And then, you know,
that
I
like
just put
fills
it,
in whatever.
it just kind of fills in wherever your scoop and your puddle aren't.
Okay, but like fill it the best that you can with the.
Yeah, because it gives you an opportunity to have your kind of like your shadows and your highlights kind of be part of the melting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'd bring in your cone, stick it in there. And if you're talking about changing colors, so let's do that really fast because there's a really easy way to do that.
So like it would be like that, and then the new puddle is.
One's
in this
green,
case,
and the next
red.
one's blue, and the next one's purple. Yeah. And so let's name this comp. Let's hold on. So we'll go Command 0, and that's comp 1. And so let's go red. Okay, and then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to Command D to duplicate. Now it says red 2, and I'm going to rename it to blue. Okay, I'm going to double.
So Jesse was saying in class, he's like, rename it immediately.
Yeah, because otherwise you don't
You'll
know.
lose it. You'll lose it.
Yeah, and so now I'm just going to come in here, and let's make like a main. Let's make it a main composition. So I'm just going to make another composition, and we'll call it main. Okay, and so I'll take my red. I'll put it in here like this. Okay, and then it's going to kind of scoop. Okay, and then I'm going to take my blue and I'll put it in over the top of the red. And then I'll come over to effects and presets. I could change everything in Illustrator. Or you can also, there's a bunch of different color options that you've got. One of the easiest ones might be like hue saturation, right? And so I'm just gonna drag a hue saturation down to my blue layer, and then I can just color shift everything over.
That's smart.
So let's say the next one's blue, right? And so then I just go like this, and it melts and hits like that. You know, we'd want to animate the scoop that comes on, and then this guy is going to come, right? And so now it goes blurp, blurp, right? And then you just do the next one, duplicate. Actually, I guess you don't have to do that. And then we'll just, on this one, we could shift it. Let's move it over so we see what's going on. Shift it further so that this one's purple, right? And then it
So you
kind of.
can duplicate it in either spot.
Yeah. And yeah, it's slowing it down now, but.
Sweet.
So, I mean, that's pretty much what you're looking at. And then you just want the first frame that you do and the last frame that you do to be the same. And then it'll loop.
Sweet. I think I'll probably just do like 3 colors, so it'll be like the Neapolitan. But
Yeah, I'm just going to come in here just for my own sake and just want to add in a cone, see what it looks like. So I'm going to go new shape layer, and we'll go cone. And let's make that a cone color. It's like lighter but not saturated and not gray. And then put that behind everything. And then we can add in kind of a background color. That, yes, that's what I want there. And then that baby behind there. And then put a sky in. Put that behind everything else. Change the color.
Did you just put that in a shape layer? Oh,
Yep,
that's
it's
comp
just
layer.
all in a shape layer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then now it should, in theory, melt and continue to melt.
Sweet.
Yep, so that's
Thank you.
that. Cool.
That's quite helpful.